We all have that one relative. Let's call him Uncle Fedderson. He shows up to Thanksgiving rocking designer clothes, but you know he's behind on rent and constantly borrowing gas money just to stay afloat. If the United States government were a household, it would be Uncle Fedderson. Scaling trillions to a household level, the government brings in $4.9 trillion, a $49,000 paycheck, but they spend $6.75 trillion, so our household spends $68,000 yearly. On top of that, the $34 trillion debt equals a $360,000 credit card balance. In the real world, this math leads to total financial ruin. You would have a hard time getting approved for a Target card, let alone a mortgage. To understand the deficit, we look at how the government handles every dollar it collects. For every tax dollar brought in, it spends $1.37. Most goes toward entitlements, 29 cents for Social Security, and 30 cents for Medicare and Medicaid. Maintaining the military apparatus, from aircraft carriers to overseas bases, takes up another 18 cents. The most startling figure is the 18 cents burned entirely on credit card interest. That is triple the amount the government spends on education. Prioritizing massive interest payments over investments in schools and infrastructure is a money laundering hallucination that ignores physical reality. One of the most popular suggestions for fixing the debt is to simply tax billionaires and large corporations until the bill is paid. This chart shows the actual IRS data on who funds the government. The top 10% of earners pay 40% of all income taxes. Meanwhile, the bottom 50% of Americans contribute less than 3%. Corporate subsidies are another target. The government gives $181 billion to farmers and energy companies, but even if we canceled every one of those subsidies, we would only cover about 10% of the annual shortfall. To see the true scale of the problem, consider Jeff Bezos. Liquidating his entire net worth would only fund the government for 3 weeks. Even if the government seized the wealth of every single billionaire in the United States, the country would be completely out of money in 7.5 years. There is also the Laffer curve to consider. The Laffer curve is an economic principle showing that taxing a population too heavily can actually result in less revenue because people stop investing or simply move away. France saw this play out in 2012 when they implemented a 75% tax on millionaires. The rich fled the country, and the government ended up losing money. Sweden had to cancel its wealth tax to stop a mass exodus of capital, and Belgium lost 10% of its millionaires to tax havens for the same reason. When the wealthy vanish, the engine of the economy stalls. Investments dry up, the stock market tanks, and innovation disappears. If the U.S. economy stops growing, adversarial nations like China will step into the global power vacuum unopposed. Closing the $1.8 trillion gap requires addressing the sheer volume of government spending. Fixing the budget means reforming entitlement programs before they collapse and aggressively cutting duplicated agencies and bureaucratic waste. We must also tame inflation. Inflation is a tax that nobody voted for, and it hits the poor the hardest, while those who hold assets get richer. Real stability comes from policies that encourage growth to make the economic pie bigger, rather than just slicing it thinner. The math cannot be ignored, and political slogans won't pay the interest. Until the spending is controlled, Uncle Fedderson is headed for total foreclosure.